Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Good evening on this Monday evening. Thank God for all of you. Thank you for this episode that we get here on how we got here on this Monday night. As you know, we come to you every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and 5 o'clock on the West Coast. So thank you so much for being a part. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to come for you each Monday night. So thank you for being loyal to the program. I don't take this moment lightly. I appreciate you more than you really know. I want to share some things with you tonight. Hopefully make us think and encourage us to go out and touch a life. We have no idea what tomorrow holds, and I want to especially speak to all of us, the mature believers, that we can share something with younger person, young adult, young teenager, whatever it may be, because tomorrow's not promised. We live like tomorrow is ours, and we have no idea we will wake on this earth in the morning. We have no idea what tomorrow holds, or even the rest of the night. And so we live like we got it all together, and there's no worries, and nothing can happen to us, and it can. We have no idea what the Lord allowed to happen in our lives. But so I want to talk today about who's driving the car. Who's driving the vehicle? Who's at the wheel? I guess you could call it who has the wheel. Who has the wheel? In this life is nothing but a vehicle that we navigate through each and every day. How do we get here? How do we get from point A to point B? And how did we get ourselves in these kinds of situations? I want to talk about that tonight. Who is at the wheel? Who has control of the wheel? As you know, we begin each Monday night, Acts chapter 17, and when it says that he is made of one blood, all nations of men, to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined the time for appointed in the bounds of the habitation. Acts 17:26, and has from one blood made all men for the dwelling face of the earth, and has determined the time for appointed in the bounds of their habitation. He has. So God made of all. So you're never any better than anybody else. Ain't nobody better than you are. I told you my mom, one of the most famous thing I remember my mom telling me as a young kid, and she said, you're not better than anybody else. And then she would say, but nobody's any better than you are. In other words, you equal. See ourselves in that fashion, in that God made of one blood, all nations of men, for the dwelling on all the face of the earth, and determined the time before appointed in the bounds of their habitation. And so we want to thank God for that, and we appreciate you taking your time for doing that. All right, so let's talk about that. Who is at the wheel? Who has the wheel? Who has the car? Who's in charge of driving the family? Who's driving the community? Who's driving our state? Who's driving? I know we'll say, this, the politician, the preachers, or the leaders in the community, whoever it may be. But our nation is in turmoil. It really is. I mean, we're so divided. This religious group think they're the best, and if you don't do it this way, you're not saved. You do it that way, you're not saved. This political organization said this. This political party said that. We are at each other's, and we're so divided. And who's happy? Nobody but the devil. The Word of God says, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. But there God will command his blessing. He will. A house divided cannot stand. How can we think that we're going to make it being so politically, so, religiously divided, racially divided? How can we? Who's driving? We were told. So how do we get to this point where we're almost afraid to do this or that? How do we get here? He told us plainly. Those of us got children. And our children now have children, or about to, whatever it may be. He told us plainly, train up a child. That word train don't mean to just talk. It means to guide and lead and demand. Train up a child in the way it should go. That means that's repetitive over and over again. And then we get old, not depart. Train up a child in the way it should go. And we get old, not depart. That is not optional. That's what he told us to do. That's what the breakdown in our society. I mean, look at our inner cities and in rural areas. No place off limits. But the Bible tells us now, guys, ladies and gentlemen, he says, sinners shall be turned into hell. And all nations that forget God. If you're willing and obedient, you should eat the good of the land. That's the word of the Lord to the body of Christ. But how do we get here? Who's driving the wheel? We're giving our children cars. I don't mean vehicles. Now I'm talking about their lives. We're giving them their lives that you guide yourself. And it being self-guided instead of making certain that we demand things. Not optional. Demand. Train up a child. That is not one day. It's not 1 year. It's not 1 month. That's the whole entire time they're under your control. Train up a child where you go when you get old enough to part. That teaching is in them. How did you and I end up this way? How did you end up where you are? Somebody took time with you. Somebody explained. Somebody guided. Somebody required things of you. Anything left to itself gets out of control. Anything left to itself gets out of control. If you don't cut your grass, it grows out of control. If you don't cut the weeds around your house, they go out of control. If you plant a garden, you don't keep the weeds out of it, it'll take over your garden. It gets out of control. Anything left to itself. So we're giving our children their lives. Other way, we're giving them the keys to the car. They have keys to the car, and they're driving their own lives, and they're not ready for it. 15 and 16 years of age, taking each other's lives and hanging out at night and being in places. Please tell me, what, God forbid, what are our kids, 16-year-old doing out at 11, 12 o'clock at night? I don't care if it's on the weekend. 16? And not under your authority or somebody you know, supervision or chaperoning? Come on. You want to know how we got to this point? How do they get access to guns and drugs and things? Who's driving the car? Who has the wheel? God gave us an answer. Train them up, and where should go? When you get old, not depart. It's not what you call it. There's no mystery how we got here. We gave the keys over to people that's not ready to drive. The Bible said children are like arrows. And what do arrows do when you point them? It goes in the direction you're pointing at. So we don't give them direction; they choose their own. You and I did the same thing as mature adults. When we was younger, we did what we thought we wanted to do, or quote unquote big enough to do, or mature enough to do. When we weren't ready for that. The home, the good home, I should say, the good home environment can impact youth in such a powerful way. Now, everybody go, listen, you can get raised up in the best of home, best environment, and still go south. Yes, that's easy, but that is not the norm. Come on, that's not the norm. But if a good home, good spiritual, morally led home, one is it can affect our children socially. They know how to deal with people. They how to interact with other people. Because if they don't know how to interact, they interact with the wrong crowd. And how many times you and I, everybody else get in trouble because we interact with the wrong people, with the wrong audience, the wrong environment. Because we become then products of our environment. We become products of our environment. And so we have so much that we need to take into account of socially. At what age do they do this or that? It's when we determine they're ready for it, not them. Come on. God don't leave us to us to determine when we get something from him. He does. He don't determine when you mature enough in the area. He does. Same thing should be with our children. Same thing with our young people. So I'm just talking. I'm talking to the choir. I know. So choir, let's help teach the choir. How do we get to this point? We gave access to the vehicle when they were not ready to drive. Not ready to drive. Not mature enough to handle all the roadblocks and detours and distractions that'll pop up in life. Train up that child. And where you should go when you get old enough to depart. How else can a good home affect the child socially? Whether it's good or bad, you were affected socially by your home. Yes. You learn to interact or not interact from home. Everything you do, it got to start at home. The lack thereof or the presence of it from home. 2, it affects mentally. A good home environment affects the child's mental outlook. Because when it's not solid mentally, it shows in his behavior, in the actions, and we don't intercede and offer some help or resources. That child is harmed or damaged or affected for life. This is how we got here. I mean, look, how can 15, 13, 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old do what they're doing now and be in a home? I'm not talking about kids in the streets. I'm not talking about kids that don't have no place to go. They're living in a home, be it both parents or one. More than nice to single parent, single mom, trying to play dad and mom at the same time and provide it, and it's so difficult. It's difficult when both parents are in the house. It is super difficult when only one is there. But God, we ain't helpless. We're not helpless. Come on now. He said, if you're willing and obedient, you either go to the land. Come on. So a good home environment affects the child socially, how they interact with people, and mentally. Stability. That your help don't come from your friends, that the friends or even the parents are not your source. God is the ultimate source. That's what we need to make sure they know. It also affects them physically. A good home environment. Physically, I mean proper rest, proper nutrition, proper eating habits, all learned from a good home. And it goes over into life. All the things that we're struggling with, obesity and all the health issues that affect our communities. Prevention is better than the cure any day of the week. A good home watches over the health of all the family members and care about it, make adjustments. That's how we got here. We can't put our ills on nobody else. We cannot put our ills, we cannot put our troubles and things on anybody else. It's all us. And it originates in that place called home. It either originates there positive or it does it negative, or it doesn't get it at all. So therefore it gravitates. A plant doesn't care who water it and what, as long as it gets watered. The mind is going to absorb what it hears, regardless of who tells it. And if that mind hadn't been trained, and things come into that mind mentally that is not good for that person or for that young man, it happens to them. Wow. Everything we do, we learn behavior. Behavior is learned. Behavior is learned. Behavior is learned. We learn how to. And then a good family home, a good strong home, affects us culturally. I mean, the culture gets us in so much trouble because we let the culture dictate what we do. When he plainly tells us in Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, it is a staple. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, Romans 12 and 1, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. Watch this now. Holy and accepted to God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. The culture. Evil communication, the Bible says. Evil communication corrupts good manners. Culture. Two cannot walk together except they be agreed. Culture. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. For the things in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life are not of the Father, but of the world. So our culture is determined, or we are cultured beginning from home. And whatever is lacking it's going to be provided by something else, because that's the desire to be in a culture or to emulate what's in the culture. So therefore, whoever we assimilate with and to will dictate what our culture would be. Can't get around it. Can't get around it. And as an adult, whoever we associate with, we're going to be known as. Because behavior is learned. You're a product of your environment. You and I are products of our environment. That's why it is essential that we teach. It is critical that we teach. It is imperative that we teach. And we never stop teaching, and we never stop learning. This is how I see we got here on this Monday night. So how did you get to where you are today? Somebody took time with you. Somebody spoke into your life. Somebody cared enough about you. Somebody suggested. Somebody corrected you. Anything left to itself gets out of control. Your thinking, if you don't control it, it goes crazy. That's your speech. If you don't control it, it gets you out. You get out of control. Your eyes keep wandering, gonna get out of control. It needs to have governance on them, restraints. We must be able to teach. This is how we got to this point on this Monday night. Anything left to itself grows wild. Anything left to itself grows wild. I'll say it again. Anything left to itself grows wild. Anything left to itself grows wild. And we're giving keys to the car to drivers who are not ready to drive. And so when things hit, when they're not prepared for, it gets them so far off track. That's why he said train them up than where they should go when you get old, not depart. It's just like when you first start driving the vehicle. You and I, when we first started driving, it seemed like a task. When I first started driving, like the steering wheel, like it was a huge wheel. And like I had to keep moving my hands when the car really drives itself, and you just keeps a little guidance to it, a little tension on the wheel to keep it from moving left or right. And if it's really aligned right, the car really drives itself in terms of guidance. You just keep one finger you can guide it with. It's been made that way. You and I need guidance. We need direction. And once we learn direction, it becomes just like without even thinking. So you do it even you don't even know you're doing it. You put your hand or at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. I mean, we don't do it much now. Very rarely if we do it at all. And so I keep telling you this because I want to. I want you to hear my heart today. Right? It is how we got to this point. How did we get here? How do we do what we do? How do we get there? Anything left to itself grows wild. We need direction. We need direction. The Bible tells us that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Our children need direction. They're drifting. That's why it begins at the HOME, not the HOUSE, because that's a house. Don't have to be a home, but a home where the good environment is, where the teaching is, where the nurturing is. It sets the kids on a path. They're like arrows. Whichever way that we shoot them, they're going that direction. And if we take our hands off of them, they grow wild. And somebody's going to teach them this way. I rather my kids to be angry with me, but taught correctly, than to be happy with me and be carefree to go and do as they please. It makes a world of difference. How'd you get to where you are? Somebody corrected you. Somebody kept you in line. Life ain't Burger King where you can have it your way. Come on. I mean, a special order, is that special order on set us? It's not a thing about having special orders. It is following orders. That's the difference. That's the difference, saints. That's the difference. But everybody needs direction too. We need guidance. We need directions. We need guidance. Children need it. Adults need it. Immature, Lord knows immature believers need it. Mature believers, we need directions and guidance. We need those. How do we get to this point? No directions, little if any guidance. And so we drift. Whatever wind blows us, we drift. That's what the word says, be driven wild by every wind of doctrine. Whatever blows make me feel good. Tickle my ears. We drift. No direction, no guidance. We need rules. We need rules. Or you want to call them? We need boundaries. Set boundaries. Man. We need boundaries. We need boundaries. I'm going to say it again. We need boundaries. Where we get ourselves so that we won't get out of line. Keep us from getting somebody else's lanes. We need it badly. I mean, church people needs it. Family members need it. Community needs it. Yo, this is how we got to this point. We're trying to guide ourselves. When the book tells us the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Ain't the lights in his way. How do we get here? No matter what you're prophesied over and to, it's your obedience to get it for you. Your obedience. No matter how much I promise you God's going to do for you, your obedience make it happen. You don't make God do it, but your obedience gets you ready for the blessing. It opens you up. It gives you access. Your obedience opens that door to what God has promised you. So we need direction. We need guidance. We need rules, and then finally, we need relationships. Everybody want to be in a relationship. You need some kind of relationship. As a human, I think we're built and made to relate to each other. The Lord, when Adam made Adam, He said it's not good for man to be alone. I'll make him a help meet, not M-E-A-T, help M-E-T, a helper. I make him a helper because it was a relationship. He had named all the animals, all the things. Adam gave them all names, but there was nobody for Adam to relate with. So God made somebody relatable. So we all need relationships, but they got to be the proper ones, the right ones. Come on, the productive ones, the positive ones. And that starts at home. That starts in the house. It's no wonder we got to where we are, guys. Our children need directions. They need guidance. They need rules. They need relationships. And so do you, mama. So do you, daddy. So do you, brother. So do you, sister. So do you, woman. So do you, man. We need relationships. We need rules. We need guidance. We need directions. Without them, we go wild. We do our own thing. We do our own thing, man. We just want to do our own thing. And so the car gets off, runs out the road into the ditch, because we got people driving who are not mature enough to handle life roads. Their bumps and their hills, their valleys, their detours, their distractions, their roadblocks, their turnoffs, getting to the left, to the right. When He tells us the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. He delights in His way. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Whew. The Lord, our God, is a strong tower. The righteous run to and they're safe. But we need directions and guidance and rules and relationships. We got to have them. There's no substitute for it. There's no substitute for it. We got to have them. There's no substitute for these. Listen, God gave me this word. He gave it to me. I'm telling you, He gave it to me to share with you today. Look at our nation. Look at the chaos that's going on. Politically, we're a mess. Divided. Red and blue states. Conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, independent. Come on. So divided. So divided. Yet we call ourselves, quote, a Christian nation. What Christian? Who we follow? Who is the Christ in our lives? When you are better than someone else. When you think your way is the only way. The book says there is a way that seemeth right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Who's driving? Who has the wheel in your life? Who has the wheel? Who has the wheel in the family? Who's driving our families? Who's driving us? He tells us plainly, when a man way pleases God, He makes his enemy be at peace with him. But the most important thing to remember along these lines, there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Keep that in mind. We've chosen, listen, and I made a notice. This is what I believe Spirit told me. He said, we've chosen making a living more important than life most important matters. I know the Bible says money solves all things. Money's a defense. But it's the love of money. It's the love of it. It's a desire for it. That's the root of all evil. And we've chosen making a living than enjoying just life, the thing that God got of family and friends and spending time, getting to know God, hanging out with people of like-mindedness versus chasing the dollar. It's the love of it that's the root of all evil. Life's most important concerns, what are they? The family, your spiritual life, community involvement, and your social well-being. Those are the most important things. The family, your relationship with God, community involvement, and your social well-being. Those are life's golden nuggets we got to have. But how do we get to this point? We give folks access to the car that they're not ready to drive. And we wonder why we're having accidents. Immature drivers. And we know why we have so much breakdown. Immature drivers. Why there's much chaos on the road of life? Because we got so many immature drivers. We got all the freeways and expressways and highways and byways filled with drivers that were not trained relationship-wise. No guidance, no rules, no direction. And we get to where we are today. How did you get where you are? Somebody took time with you. You made a mistake, they corrected you. Now we are fearful of correcting our children. Fearful of correcting because we don't want to lose them or whatever it is. But we're losing every day. Our young people are dying, craving, desiring relationships. That's why they join certain things and be a part of certain things. They don't get that thing at home. The first relationship that the kids learn is how to have a relationship with family, relationship with their God. I bet how important it is to be involved in culture. I mean, in environment, community involvement. Those things that we have to teach, train up a child in the way he should go when he get old. You're not the part. But how can we teach to them when we're not doing it? Can't do it, can we? If the blind lead the blind, what happens if both fall into the ditch? If the blind lead the blind, they both fall into the ditch. That's what we got. That's how we got here. That's how we got to this point. When we spare correction, we spoil the person under our control. When we spare the rod, I'm not talking about just physical punishment, but a corporal punishment. I'm talking about that plus correction socially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, all the things we have to correct in the home. If a child is confused at home, how can the school correct that? How can the community correct it? If he keeps getting confused, if he keeps getting discouraged and put down and beat up on and have no directions, how can he get it from somewhere else when he craves it? When we spare the rod of correction. Listen what the writer says. Solomon in all of his wisdom, again, we believe he's the most wisest man, or the wisest man ever lived next to Christ. He said this in Proverbs chapter number 13, verse 24. He says, "He that spareth his rod hateth his son." Now let that sink in. When I hate or when I spare correction, when I spare correcting, I mean demanding that we do it. When I don't demand respect, when I don't demand obedience, he said, "You really hate your son." I love him too much. No, you don't. No, you ain't loving him. I'd rather correct him than have somebody else correct him. I'd rather get on to him instead of having somebody else get on to him. I'm going to read that again. Listen to what it says now. This is Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24. He that spareth his rod, correction, whatever it is, physical, if need to be corporal, or punishment with something that causes the attention to be given, that costs them something. He said, "He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes," or often, or every time. You don't get in the way. Oh, I'll get it next time. No. Each one deserved one. Oh, that's somebody put in a comment. Each one deserves one. Each time we walk in disobedience, it deserves correction. God does it to us. I'm going to read it again. Now let this sink in again. Please teach this. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes, many times, or every time, often, when needed. Make sense? God chastens us. Hebrews 12, verse 5 through 7. Hebrews 12, verse 5 through 7 reads, and ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children, my son. Despise not the chastening of the Lord. Despise it not, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Don't get angry when God corrects you or send correction to you through someone, through his word, through his spirit to you. Don't despise it, he says. Verse 6, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, he corrects, he punishes, and scourges him, or encourages every son whom he receiveth. If you're going to be the son of God, you're going to be a child of God, you're going to go through correction. God has to, if he loves you, he's going to correct you. Solomon just told us, if you spare your rod, you really hate your own son. You know how we got here? We've been sparing the rod of correction, be it corporally, or whatever it may be. I'm telling you, man, this is how we got to this point. Who's driving us? We're giving keys to the car, access to the wheel from people who have not been trained, who have been disciplined. A lack of discipline does not lead to a disciplined life. Please, somebody put that in the comment. The lack of discipline before time does not lend to a disciplined life. An undisciplined child cannot have a disciplined life because there's nothing to, he has to go back. He has no point of reference. And that's how we get to some adults. We do what we want to do when we want to do it because we had no discipline that begins at home. So therefore, when you face it at school, we lash out. Can't nobody tell me what to do because it starts at home. We can correct this now. If you're willing and obedient to go to the land. Return unto me, the Lord said, I'll turn unto you. He's waiting tonight on you and me. He really is. Oh, God, thank you, Lord. In verse 7, Hebrews 12 and 7 said, and if ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? Oh, wait, what kind of son are we going to produce if we don't chase our son? And what kind of father are we that we don't chase our sons? Wow. And you don't get too old to be corrected. Mom, dad, son, daughter. I got about 10 more minutes. Now watch. If you endure chastening, he said, you deal as father deal with his son. Abraham, let me show you the importance of guiding. Show you the importance of direction. Show you the importance of rules. Show you the importance of relationship. Remember, I told you everybody need guidance, directions, rules, and relationship. Watch how important it is. How for God to move. God doesn't move in chaos. God doesn't move when there's no discipline. God doesn't move in chaotic situations. He'll correct it, but he doesn't move with the blessings. Disorder does not produce the blessings of God. Disorder at home. Don't have a blessed home. Disorder in the community. You ain't have no blessed community. Disorder in the church. You ain't have no blessed church. Disorder in the state. We no blessed states. Disorder in America, in the nation. There's no blessed nation when there's disorder. Let me read to you how important it is for us to be in control of what he gave us, our homes, our children. Listen to what he said in Genesis chapter 18, verse 18, 19 about Abraham. This is God talking now. This is what the Lord said. He said, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. This is God talking about what Abraham would do. 19. For I know him, that he will command, military term, he will command, direct, guide his children. He will discipline his children. He will chasten his children. He will teach his children. That's what that means. He command. So you can't command where there's no direction. You can't command where there's not been any teaching. You can't command when there's not been no direction. You can't demand anything if you have not made it plain to what you expect. So he says, I know Abraham, for he shall command his children and his home and his household after him. Everybody in it, those who work for him. He said, he's going to command everybody. And they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of. So in other words, God says Abraham, he's going to command his house right. He's going to make sure they keep what I told him right, so I can give him what I said. Which then, if I do deductive reason here, if he does not demand or command his household, then God can't give him what he promised him. And that, my brothers and sisters, is how we got here tonight. The blessings of God that he has stored for us. Could it be that it's being held back the way it should have been given to us? Because we ain't commanding the house. He said, I know Abraham. He's going to command his house, his children and his house, and everybody in it. They're going to keep my way. They're going to do justice, do judgment, do right, that I may bring upon him that which I promised him. Could it be that our homes are in shambles? Could it be that our nations are struggling? Because we haven't commanded. Now, what we were over now have children. Our children now have children. And if they didn't get it, how can they teach it? Come on. Instability at home does not produce stable lives. Instability anywhere does not lead a stable situation for anyone. I'm almost done. Proverbs 29, 17 to 19, and I got about eight more minutes, I think. Listen. Proverbs 29, verse 17 through 19 reads, correct thy son, he shall give thee rest. You got to worry about where he is. You know, at 10 o'clock, you home. I don't have to worry about your son somewhere last night, 11 o'clock. Oh, no. 10 o'clock, he's at home every night. If not, I'm going to look for him, and I'll do it one time. I'm serious. He's saying, correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul. Because if you train them up when they're young, when they're babies, in other words, when they get to be a mature a young man, he bring you delight and pleasure. That's what Solomon was saying. I'm going to read again. Proverbs 29, verse 17. Correct thy son when he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul. 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. If the son don't have no vision, that's what it's really. Remember, he just talked about when correct the son. So that vision is attached to correction. That vision is attached to correction. Where there's no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. And 19, a servant will not be corrected by words. You just can't say, well, I'm going to talk to him. No. Discipline. Corporal punishment if need be. He said here, a servant will not be corrected by words, for though he understand, he will not answer. Wow. Who's driving the vehicle? Who has access to the wheel? That's how we got here. Y'all, how we got here. And finally, I said I was every Monday night. The remedy for good adults is we start when they're kids. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 3 plainly tells us about preparing our children. We teach this to them. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. Ephesians 6, verse 1 through 3. For this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. Why? That it might be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long upon the earth. Recipe for success. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to thy own understanding. All thy ways acknowledge him. He'll direct your path. Foundational stuff that secures success. That secures successful adults. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, though, says this about the parents, about the father. Fathers, what? Provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Don't give them the car and they can't drive yet. Just because they say I'm ready. They don't mean they're ready. You determine that. God does it for us. What makes us any different? What makes us any different? And finally, the teaching is so important. The Lord told Moses to tell the children of Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 through 9. Listen to what he said, how to teach our children. This is how important it is. It begins when they're small. And by the time they get old, they can recite it and stand on themselves. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 through 9. He says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might." That's what we got to teach our children. Not some athlete. Come on, not some celebrity, not some movie star, not some politician. You shall love the Lord thy God. He comes first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and these things will be added unto thee. That's what we teach at a young age. When do we teach at a young age? Watch what he said in verse 6. "And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thy heart." Put it in here. Train them up in the way they should go. When they get old, they won't depart from it. 7. "And thou shalt teach." Listen, here we go. "Teach them diligently." Not just casually, quickly. Diligently, he says. Painstakingly. Intentionally. Unto thy children. "And shall talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." Teach them. This is what the Lord told Moses to tell children of Israel. "And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates." This is the house of the Lord. I'm not talking about the church. My house, dedicated to the Lord. That's what he said. And then finally he said, "And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and that shall be as a frontlet between thine eyes." What I said, what I require, said the Lord. Who's driving the vehicle? You wonder why we're having so many accidents in life? We got people driving that's not qualified to drive. I'm talking about have not matured enough. Didn't get the teaching. And so if you don't get taught as a young age, you never get the teaching as an adult, you become you teach yourself without regard to the word of God. And that, my brothers and sisters, is how we got to this point on tonight. I sure thank you for your time. My time is up. I thank you for yours. Have yourself a blessed rest of the week. Remember now, if you're willing and obedient, you get the good of the land. It's your Father's will to give you the kingdom. Have a good one. See you next Monday.